I saw him go across the bumps, and then he threw asphalt all over my windshield, and I was like, oh, shit. My name is Todd Hendrix. Everybody knows me as Radar, and I'm one of the owners of Star Throwdown, and I'm in the Truck Club Negative Camber. Yeah, I can remember just being into cars in general as a kid. I mean, I always had Hot Wheels and trucks and tractors and all that stuff, and my dad was into 18-wheelers forever, still are, and he would bring those kind of things home too, so I would play with all that stuff. But I do remember my sister buying a Hot Rod magazine for me. She bought me a subscription, and I would love to watch drag racing on TV. So the first issue, I'll never forget, it was Kenny Bernstein on the cover, and I want to say he either broke the 260 mile an hour or 280 mile an hour. And, you know, when you're that age, whatever I was then, you see that, holy crap, that's unbelievable. So I must have worn that magazine out, and I couldn't wait for, 30 days to go by for the next one to show up. First vehicle was a 71 Volkswagen Super Beetle. I still got the car. My dad bought it for me. I don't know, I was 15 years old, I guess, and anticipating me getting my driver's license. Ended up lowering the front of it, drove it around for a while, of course, put a stereo in it, and I ended up getting rear-ended and pushed into another car, and it completely squished it. So we ended up buying it back from the insurance company and put, all new body panels on it. And my poor dad, he spent a bunch of money repainting that thing. And I want to say like 6 months before we got it back from the body shop, I got my Isuzu, and I haven't messed with a Volkswagen since. Again, I guess back to my Volkswagen, it was painted and had an interior in it, and I put 212s in it and lowered the front of it. Was trying to lower the back, have somebody help me do the back, because I didn't, know jack anything about them then. And that's when the lady rear-ended me and needed a car, and going into high school, going to my senior year of high school, and they're like, well, you need a car, so they ended up buying me the Isuzu. A good friend of mine, Smiley, Mike McKeska, he had a Toyota that they completely, and you've seen it at LST, it's frame painted, motor painted, and chromed, and I thought that was so cool how detailed they did it. Then of course Minitruckin, all the guys on the West Coast, East Coast, everybody that was, going crazy and body dropping things and, fully detailing the motors and everything. I think just the everybody's passion for it, everybody pushing each other to do cool things. That's what ultimately, made me go spend every paycheck I had on that thing. I just remember running around our area, you'd see a lot of the trendsetter mini trucks. I'd always ask my parents to take me to the Saturday night car shows, because they had them, all around the area. And I would always see the trucks out there, and that was the whole reason why I wanted to go. And, just seeing the stuff that Pat Maxwell was painting, because he was, the painter in the area, the custom painter. And man, it was just so cool to see that. And I always thought, man, one day I want to have him paint something. Luckily, I've had him paint 2 of my vehicles. And actually become good friends with the guy through the years. But I think, what he had done for the area, with Trendsetter Minis, and of course all the paintwork he put out, I think that he was a big influence on me and a lot of guys my age for that. When I first got it, it was black, and I just had Maxwell do some little brush graphics on it, had ground effects and, 15-inch prime wheels on it. And then, Ballistic come out on the cover, and, everybody was airbagging and air shocking things. And, I don't want to break my ground effects off, because they're fiberglass. Actually, I still have them in there too. But, so when everybody was body dropping and airbagging things, and I saw Ballistic, I was like, all right, that's it. I got to do it. So off they came, and, bought some 16-inch Budniks and had Rob Rodell airbag and body dropped the thing. And then just kept snowballing from there. The engine blew, went crazy on it and painted everything. And, then the interior was tweed, because that's what was cool back in the day, tweed and vinyl. And then I actually ended up with 17-inch billet specialties on it. And then kind of got burnt out on it, was wanting to build something else, and sold it, and kind of regretted it a few months later. Mm. So bought it, I want to say it was in the summer of '92, and then I sold it in '03. And then I guess in March or April of '18, I ended up buying it back. So it was gone for what, 15 years or so. Yeah, me and Todd White, we went to Endless Summer. This was back in '96. And we drove all the way to Parker, Arizona. And I think we got there on a Wednesday, stayed in a hotel. We ended up getting to the park Thursday. Well, Saturday, we woke up for the show and we camped. And the show was kind of boring. So we're like, you know what, let's just, because none of our club guys were there, it was just us. And so we stayed till about noon. We're like, you know what, we got a 24-hour drive, let's just head back. So we each got in our trucks and we're each one by ourselves. So we drove through the night, and I want to say we got to Las Cruces and slept, and then woke up the next morning. And on these Isuzus, the 2.6 motor, the oil pan hangs below the crossmember a fair amount. So, you know, of course, you're driving it an inch off the ground. And I remember he was ahead of me, I think, because that Toyota was actually faster than mine. And I saw him go across the bumps, and then he threw asphalt all over my windshield, and I was like, oh, shit. And, of course, driving it way too low considering the oil pan, I skipped across it, and I'm just watching my oil pressure light, and it never came on. And I felt the stick, you know, the shifter go up, and looked in the rearview mirror, and there was no oil on the ground, so I was like, oh, okay, we're good. So I think thankfully the oil was hot enough, and it would still get through the oil pan pushed into the pickup tube. So I think the oil was hot enough and thin enough where it could still get, you know, the motor could pick it up and have oil pressure. So I got home, parked the truck. Well, the next morning I started it, and it stalled on me. And I was like, I just drove, you know, 1,000 miles an hour. Thank God it didn't happen on the way back. And I started it again, and it ran. I sat there and let it idle. I was like, okay. So I get to the end of the street, and it stalled again. I was like, I don't have time for this shit. So I turned around. You probably have to beep that. I turned around and went back and parked it in the driveway, and I used another vehicle and did whatever I had to do. And I come back that night, and I started the truck up, and I had the hood open, sat there trying to figure out why it would stall. Well, the engine locked up in front of me. It squealed so loud, and before I realized what it was, I thought at first it maybe was a belt. Well, when I realized what it was, by the time I got in through the window to grab the key, it had already shut itself off. And I opened the door, pushed the clutch in, and hit the starter, and it just clunk, clunk. So it locked up right there in front of me. So I'm assuming when I came through West Texas, those two bumps I hit pushed the oil pan up. So, and that's why we ended up pulling the motor out and rebuilding it, and painting it and chroming it and powder coating it. And that's why it was important to get this thing back, because, you know, my dad busted his ass to even have, you know, pay bills and you know, grow the company to what we've grown it to now. And so, of course, I airbagged and body dropped the thing and blew the motor up in it. So he actually helped me rebuild it and put it back together. And my mom and dad's garage probably still has orange overspray in it from all the parts I painted in there. And, you know, like I said, he helped me build that thing on a Saturday, which he was never home on a Saturday. He was always working. So that was kind of the other thing. You know, I know he worked himself to death to pay bills, and, you know, it meant more to me than just a car. You know, it was kind of part of the family. Right. So it was good to have it back. I bought back my Isuzu about a year ago, and I thought it was in a little better shape than what it was. Just thought maybe I had to chuck some wheels on it and redo the interior and whatnot. But man, I'm gonna have to dig in my pocket and get some paint work done, and you know, some body work here and there. But for the most part, I think we can kind of preserve, you know, the paint. Future plans, I'd like to obviously change the wheels, get the tint off of it, redo the interior. I want to kind of do like an updated version of that truck, like if it was built today. You know, do something else on the motor, maybe change the color a little bit, nothing too drastic off of what it is, but just update it to what today's standards are. I don't know if it's affected me. I mean, everything I have that's driven, even my company truck that's a service vehicle, I've put a tuner on it, a bigger turbo and an exhaust. I mean, my wife drives an SS Trailblazer. I had to lower it, and I don't know if she could really care or not. We had a Lexus we lowered. But I think when I do buy a vehicle, there's already something in my head brewing, because, oh, if I buy that, they make all these parts for it, you know, or it'll look like this one, you know. So I think everything I've bought's always been premeditated. But I've got a 2004 Runner that's bagged that I'm hoping to get back here to work on. I've got an '86 Toyota turbo truck that's bagged, body drop, that is ready for body work and paint. All the suspension's done on it. Of course, I got my Datsun, the dually, both of these Isuzus, a couple bugs. Yeah, because I want one of everything. You know, I like the Volkswagen here. I want to build a drag bug out of it because as a kid, we'd go to all the bug shows and see the races, and I love drag racing, but I've never owned anything. I can't get away from all my buddies that are mini truckers because I have so much fun with them to go do something different. You know, I drive down the road and you know, you see an old square body Chevy. Well, I'm not much of a square body Chevy guy, but if I had a nice clean one, I sure would work on it. You know, I want everything. I'd love to have an all-wheel drive Eclipse. I know that sounds silly, but as a kid, I thought those things were awesome. The power they were making out of them, and do a few little doodads, and you can go have a ball with it. You know, I want the all-wheel drive, the '92 model.
Yes.
I want one so bad. And, I'd love to have a Chevy Cyclone or GMC Cyclone, Grand Nationals. I mean, I want one of everything.
Say goodnight, Radar.